Oh hello, Vanessa here to show you how to make one row buttonholes in any size or stitch pattern except without turning the work. That's right, this is a no-turn technique that was developed by Elizabeth Zimmerman and described in her book Knitter's Almanac. This is a great option for smaller buttonholes where you want a little more structure than a simple yarn over buttonhole, but more stretch than a buttonhole that uses a cable cast on. You may also find that it looks neater than a traditional one-row buttonhole. My patterns that use this method, as well as a buttonhole placement worksheet that I put together to help you with the math for a custom buttonhole band, are linked in the box below. Alright, let's jump in. Before you begin to make a buttonhole with this technique, make sure your yarn is at the back of the work. So if your last stitch was a knit stitch, leave the yarn in the back, and if it was a purl stitch, move the yarn to the back. Then, the first thing we're going to do is slip one stitch purlwise. Now that we've done that, we're going to move our yarn to the front between the needles. Next, slip another stitch purlwise. And now we're going to pass the second stitch on the right needle over the first to bind off one. And I'm only binding off one stitch per buttonhole, so I'm going to stop here, but depending on the width of your buttonhole, you'll need to repeat the last two steps for the number of stitches needed for your buttonhole. So again, slip one, bind off one, and so on until you reach that number. But also be careful not to make your buttonholes too wide for your buttons. The holes can and should be smaller. Okay, so now we're going to take this stitch and move it back to the left needle twisted. So insert your left needle into that stitch from back to front, like this, and slip it. And you can see it has a different orientation than the second stitch on the left needle. Its left leg is in front instead of its right leg. Next, we're going to twist this stitch in the same way by inserting the left needle into it from back to front, slipping it, and then placing it back on the right needle. And here again, you can see this stitch's left leg is in the front. It's facing the stitch to the right, and this pair mirrors the last pair on the left needle. So now we need to pull the yarn pretty snug toward ourselves, and then bring it from the front to the back over the right needle, laying it over the needle just like that. Hold that yarn in place with your right index finger, and with the left needle, pass the stitch we twisted over the yarn and off the right needle. Give the yarn a good tug, and as you can see, doing that last step secured the yarn in the back. Now for the next step, I like to move my left needle out of the way just to make things easier to see and do. And what we're going to do here is use the backward loop cast on method to firmly cast on one stitch more than we bound off. There's one stitch, and I'll give this a really good tug. And there's my second stitch. Be sure to keep that cast on firm. And once again, you'll want to cast on one more stitch than you bound off. So repeat that step as many times as needed for your specific buttonhole. Finally, let's take a look at the second stitch on our left needle. If that stitch is a knit stitch, you'll need to knit two together. If it's a purl stitch, you'll have to purl two together. As you can see, I have a knit stitch here, so I'm going to knit two together. You may notice a bit of tension on these stitches. And after working them together, you may have a gap. So to close it up, give the yarn a good tug once again, and that looks a lot better. So now that we've made one buttonhole, I'm going to finish this row and then quickly show you how I work the buttonhole stitches on the next row. Okay, here we are. I worked in knit 2, purl 2 rib until I reached my 2 cast on stitches, and I just ended with purl 1. So I'll purl the first cast on stitch normally. And then to stay in pattern, I will knit the next cast on stitch as well as the stitch that follows it. Don't be surprised if these stitches are a little harder to insert your needle into. Remember, you cast them on firmly. So that's it. Simply work the cast on stitches in whatever pattern you've been working for the buttonhole band. If you work the holes correctly, any stitch pattern with a specific multiple will not be interrupted. Well, there you have it, friends, a neat and efficient buttonhole method. If you enjoyed this video but want to check out another method before you add buttonholes to your project, join me in the video on your screen now. If you're ready to sew the buttons onto your project but need some guidance, I have a video for that too. But before you go, please click or tap that like button. It helps so much and I really appreciate it. See you around!